Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. It is Friday, the 21st of July, 2023. My name is Zoe. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my testimony with you guys. So basically, how this came about was I have basically been carrying this testimony with me for quite some time now. I've definitely shared it with a couple of people within certain counseling groups and stuff like that. But I have not yet shared the full testimony with basically anybody that would like to hear about it. And a few weeks ago, a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, I had coffee with her, and I basically just, shared a bit about myself, about my story with her, and it was really great. It's always so nice to be able to chat to people about it because there's no better relief than being able to tell your story without being judged, and just to share the greatness of who Jesus is and what he's done in your life with people. There is no better feeling in the whole entire world. It's just such a healing mechanism as well. That's why it's basically used in a lot of AA groups and counseling groups where you share and you tell the truth and you speak your truth. There's no better release than being able to do that. But anyway, so I did that, and then a week later, she contacted me and she said that she felt like the Lord was pressing it on her heart for me to be able to share my testimony on her page. So she's got a beautiful page on Instagram where every Tuesday or Thursday she basically invites somebody who she feels the Lord is pressing her towards to kind of come and share their story and their testimony. When it happened, I kind of feeling that it might have, because like I said, I've been having this feeling for quite some time now where the Lord was kind of pushing me towards it. So it wasn't a surprise, but it was kind of like okay, it's time now. And it was a little bit scary, I'm not going to lie, because I am, contrary to what people may think and people that know me or knew me would think, I'm actually quite a bit of an introvert. So it takes me a lot to open up to people. So it was a bit of a difficult pill to swallow, but here I am. Nevertheless, here I am. I feel like after a lot of praying, a lot of writing, a lot of thinking about it, a lot of asking him questions, just going over it, I feel like this is what he wants me to do, and this is the least I can do for him. I mean, when you hear what he's done for me and how he's pulled me out of the darkest of waters and saved me, this is like nothing. Like, I can do this. So here we go. So basically, I am 35 years old. I just turned 35 about a week and a half ago. Yay! So basically 35, living in Cape Town, South Africa. Very happy for the very first time in my life. Like, I actually remember on my 35th birthday, I was just praying and I was just thanking the Lord for everything. And I literally said to him, for the first time in my whole entire life, I can literally say I'm completely content and happy with who I am and who he's molding and transforming me into, basically. If you ask me to change anything, I would say, like, I'm fine. I feel good. Everything he's teaching me is within his will and his timing, and I'm open to it and I'm obedient in it. But everything he's taken out of me and all the hurt that he's pulled out of me and healed is just like so amazing that I woke up just feeling so grateful and so thankful and so healthy and so happy for the first time ever on my birthday morning. Basically, my testimony. So I am 35 years old. I am a recovering alcoholic and drug addict as well. And I have gone through a lot of things in my life. So when I was younger, in my early childhood, I was sexually molested. But having said that, I had the ability to basically, I realized from a very young age, I knew things that I should not have known about certain parts of bodies and opposite sex. I knew how to do certain things that, I mean, knowing now, that I definitely should not have known when I was younger. and it basically came out in my later adulthood, where I realized this was what happened to me. Why I didn't realize it back then was because I had the ability to kind of, when trauma comes my way, I think it was a coping mechanism, but when trauma came my way, I was able to block things out. So I was able to put myself out of my body and basically imagine that I was somewhere else or something else. So I actually don't know who did it. I can't see the person's face. I just know that it did happen, and I know that from that a lot of other things basically transpired in my life. So from that incident, which happened a couple of times, I developed a very big fear of the night, basically darkness. So every night I would be very, very scared to fall asleep. I would literally climb into my brother and sister's bed and try to sleep between the wall and them so that nothing can get me in between, As selfish as it sounds right now, I was like, no, you can get them rather than me. It wasn't like that. It was just because I was so scared. So I used to sleep between there, and I used to never be able to fall asleep because I was so scared. Everything had to be closed. The doors had to be closed. The cupboards had to be closed. No teddies around or anything. Because I used to think this bad thing would come into the room and hurt me. So I developed a sleeping problem basically, and I started getting night terrors from a very, very young age. So first of all, I couldn't sleep. I was very scared of the dark and very scared to fall asleep. And when I did fall asleep, I would have really bad night terrors. And this went well into my adulthood. Like, I mean, I still every now and again get night terrors. It's just something that it doesn't completely go away, but the Lord does teach you how to cope with it, and it does get better. So anyway, so that happened, and I think with that, a lot of other things kind of transpired into my life. I started drinking at a very young age of like 14, 15. My parents were quite young when they had me, so there was a lot of, because they were so young, they were still, going out and having people over and drinking. So it was just kind of a normal thing in our family, not just with my parents, but my whole family. That's what we did. We liked to care. And I developed a drinking habit from a very young age because I realized that this was a way to kind of numb the feelings and put me to sleep, basically, if I could put it that way. So like I would have a couple of drinks, I would feel good, it would help me with my insecurity of being socially awkward and social anxiety. It would make me extrovert instead of introvert, so why not? I enjoyed it. And then on top, the cherry on the top was that it could allow me to fall asleep. It never kept me asleep because alcohol doesn't always do that. It allows you to maybe pass out, but you have very broken sleep, and you actually, if you suffer with things like night terrors and stuff like that, alcohol makes it even worse. I didn't know that at the time. I just wanted to be able to fall asleep, and this is what helped me to fall asleep. So growing up, basically, I used to just like to drink and party. Was scared of the dark. I had big insecurities of myself. I had lots of questions about myself, like, why do I know all these things that other people don't? Is there something wrong with me? In this abuse as well, I developed a feeling of like that's what love meant. I couldn't quite understand it. I don't know why. Like I used to feel like if people were attracted to me and sexually attracted to me, then that means they liked me and they loved me. If not, then I was worthless, So I think that all kind of stemmed from that past. Anyways, going forward, so that kind of went on into my teens, and then I got into a relationship in my early 20s. With a person that I think both of us came from very hard, like things that had happened to us both in our paths separately. So in saying that, I think we were very toxic for each other. I wish nothing but the best for him at this point in time. Yes, we were toxic and we were very horrible, and he did horrible things to me, but I've forgiven him and I've moved on from it. But in that relationship, I went through a lot of things as well. He was a drug addict, and so I was exposed to drugs at that age already. I, at the beginning, didn't realize it, but then I quickly figured it out, and then I was like, why? What is this whole thing? Why are they so into it and all that type of stuff? So obviously that sparked my curiosity. In saying that as well, because he was a drug addict and he loved to party, he was in sales, he used to cheat on me a lot, and he used to be out and about with his work colleagues all the time, leaving me at the house a lot, till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, going to strip clubs. And then I used to sit up being like, what did I remember that thing where I said, like, I used to see, like, if they weren't physically attracted or didn't give me love or attention, that meant that they didn't love me. So I used to think to myself, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Instead of thinking what he was doing wrong, I was blaming it on myself. So I stayed in that relationship for a very long time. And I ended up falling pregnant, unfortunately. And it was a very dark time in my life. My parents weren't here at that point in time. I think they were overseas. And I just was in this relationship with him where I'd cut everybody off, basically, and it was all about him. And we had just broken up the night before I found out about this. We had a fight, where alcohol was involved. We went out the one night, we got into a huge fight. I found out that he was cheating on me, so he flew off to go back to Joburg, and I was stuck in Cape Town, and then I was feeling sick, and then my brother's girlfriend at the time said, well, why don't you just get a test? Maybe you're pregnant. Got a test, found out I was pregnant, and everything just came crashing down. Yeah. So everything came crashing down at that time, and I didn't know what to do. I knew at that stage I felt like such a disappointment in my life. I didn't want to tell my parents. I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want them to be disappointed with me. And I just was like, where am I going? And then also like the fear of being like a reckless mother, like I'm not ready for this. He's not ready for this. Just came in. So I contacted him. He after a lot of convincing, he accepted the fact that I was pregnant and it was his child. He spoke to his mom, and his mom convinced me to have an abortion. This was a very difficult decision for me. It still affects me to this day, but it gets better. Anyways, okay, let's not get emotional now. So I went through with this abortion, and it was basically because it was still so early in my onset. I could just take like 3 pills, and then it would bring on the heaviest period that you basically will ever get in your life. And it's no joke, it really was. So he came back down. I went back to the house, and we were living in a house at the time with him and one of his work colleagues. And I'd taken the pill, and then I went to go lay down because I was in excruciating pain. It was so sore. It was the worst feeling in the whole entire world. Anyways, so I was laying in bed, and then at that time, instead of him being there for me to help me get through this, he decided the way he was going to cope with it was he was just going to invite all his friends over, and they were going to have a big party. So here I was laying in this bed, and he was having a huge party with a bunch of work colleagues, lots of alcohol, lots of drugs, and I could just hear this all going on here while I was laying in bed, like crying and just in pain. And then at one stage, his boss at the time came in, and he actually tried to sleep with me while I was in this pain. He tried to force himself on me. Basically, he was drunk while I was laying in bed in this pain. And I just remember at that point in time, I was like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I here? How is this happening to me? I don't want to be here anymore. So I left the next day, and then eventually I went home for a bit, and then I got back with him for a couple of times, and then eventually I couldn't do this relationship anymore. It was breaking me down. I honestly believed that I could be with nobody else. He used to tell me lots of horrible things about like how stupid I was because I never finished school. Not because I never finished school. I did finish school, matric, but I never studied. He basically said all I was good for was I looked good and I was good to go partying, and I didn't really know anything about the world, and I wasn't interested in anything, which was theoretically it was the truth, because I honestly at that point in time I didn't have any hopes and dreams for my future. I just was trying to survive from getting from one day to the next day. Basically, I was an alcoholic already then. I didn't realize it at that stage because I had to drink every night basically just to put myself to sleep. And it was difficult, and I was just miserable, and I was unhappy, and I was with this person where I was so lonely, but I believed that this is all I would deserve because of what I had done in my past, what had happened to me, and what I had chosen to do. I believed that this was it. This is all I was going to be able to get. So anyway, so I stuck around with that for quite some time, and then about 4 or 5 years. And then eventually I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I'd rather just, be alone than be with this person. So I broke up with him, and I moved out, and then I moved back with my parents for a bit, and then basically, I just carried on and on and on, and then through this time, I worked many different jobs because I was never happy. Like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I would start off with a position, find a crowd of friends. I was very good at doing that, finding a crowd of friends within my circle of people right there. Party, become like this, like I didn't want to grow any attachments to people. So as soon as people started coming too close to me, I thought, okay, let me sabotage it. And then I left that company, left the friends, left the house, left everything, and moved to the next one. So I moved and I lived in a lot of places in my life, like Hermanus, Langebaan, all over the place. I was all over Cape Town, Molliton, Tableview, City Centre, Camps Bay, everywhere. Not to mention, I also went overseas and did a lot of jumping overseas as well. It's because I just was never content. I would just go for a little bit, and then when it got too much for me, I'd pick everything up, leave them all, wouldn't care who I hurt in that time, and then move on to the next group of people because I was new. They didn't know me. They didn't know my past. They didn't know who I was, and it was just easier to do that growing up and throughout my adulthood. Anyways, and then I basically, at one stage in my work career, I was on my way to my city bus because I lived close to my work. So I just had to catch a little bus for about 5 minutes, not even, to get to where my work was. So one morning I decided to leave and I left. And then I got held up by gunpoint and they tried to kidnap me, basically, on my way to work. Which was very traumatic at that time, being held up by gunpoint. Again, what I said was I was able to pull myself out of my body and I could see it all happening to me, but without the feelings. And then when obviously it came to, they had managed to catch the people and I had to basically go to court and testify against them, which was also very traumatic. In this, they obviously give you counseling afterwards, and in the counseling, the person that counseled me had subscribed me, because she knew about my night terrors and stuff like that. She had subscribed me antidepressants and sleeping tablets to help me fall asleep. With these two things, I had fallen, this is where the drug addict came in. Basically, I had gotten addicted to these antidepressants and these sleeping tablets. So that's where that started forming. So every night I would basically, if I wasn't drinking, I was popping pills to try and fall asleep, basically. And this is how my life went from going forward. Then eventually I decided I was going to leave South Africa because I basically ran out of, I see it now, but then I didn't realize that I ran out of options on where to stay and who knew me and whatever and all that stuff. So I thought, okay, let's go overseas. It'll be great. It's a new adventure. I can earn dollars. I can finally earn enough money to maybe do something with my life or whatever. My sister was over there. She was loving it. And it was just like a new escape, basically. So I went overseas, and then I worked overseas for about 4 years. During this time, because I hadn't gone to university, I basically lived my university life through this period. And I was like 27 already, I think. 27, 28, I'm not too sure. So basically it was a lot of young people that were just coming out of school, just coming out of university. So a lot of like 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 year olds. And yeah, I was this 27, 20. There were a couple of old people as well, but my age. But I tended to always gravitate to the younger, more vibey, more outgoing crowd, because they were the ones that were doing what I wanted to do, go out and drink and just, they weren't too bothered about who you were or whatever. The older people wanted to know more substance about you, wanted to get to know you and who you were in depth. I didn't want that. I was too scared because I didn't know who I was at that time. I mean, if you had asked me, so who are you? Where are you going? What are your dreams? What do you want? What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? I didn't even know because I didn't know. I didn't want to know. I was confused, scared, and I just didn't want to live my life, basically. Let's put it that way. So it was easy to kind of gravitate towards these friends, and they were amazing people. Don't get me wrong. I had so much fun with them, but you know what? Myself, I'm blaming myself. I wasn't my true, authentic self in it. It was easy because now social media was big as well, and nobody had to actually, every 6 months you get to move on. So you literally had 6 months with these people, and then you could basically go move on and to another group of another group of people for 6 months. So nobody had to really know the truth, I thought, so it was amazing because I was earning dollars, I was partying, I was shopping. Instagram, if you had followed my Instagram, you would have thought I was living the high life. I was so happy, I had so many friends, had all these beautiful things, I was just doing all this stuff. In hindsight, there was none of that was true. It was all for the gram, basically. It was all fake. I was super lonely, super depressed. I latched onto anybody that would give me attention. And then as soon as they started questioning me or trying to actually care about me or trying to reprimand me or actually, tell me, Zoe, this isn't right or whatever, I would just like cut them out and be like, no, I would do them wrong and cut and leave them, basically. Like that was just I would sabotage, self-sabotage, just destruct. So in that time, I'd met some amazing people and I'd hurt so many people because obviously with drinking, what had developed was in the beginning, it's all fun and games, but eventually when you really don't like yourself and you really are unhappy, no amount of alcohol is going to be able to hide that because it will only bring it out. And then what would happen was I would become really bitchy and ugly and really, really mean to people, like really mean to people. And what the thing was, I would never know these things until the next day. And then they would tell me about it and I would be like, no, that's not me. That's not what I think. Like, how can, no. And then that would upset me even more. And then I would just be like, I don't want to deal with this. And then I would just drink again. And then it would just be like the same repeated cycle. So I had to do a lot of healing and a lot of asking for forgiveness and just like, confrontation, basically. Anyways, so that happened. And then something traumatic happened at the end of my stay in the States, where it kind of basically woke me up and I was like, wow, this is scary. I almost got like locked up abroad, basically, and it just freaked me out, and I needed to get home and my visa was up. So once again, I think the Lord just kind of saves you in the most amazing ways. Anyway, so I came home, and then I was home, but even though I was home for a bit, I was hoping that I was just going to be home for the 3 months and then I can get my visa and go back overseas, because that's what I wanted to be back there. Even though it was like traumatic, I was like, no, I want to be back there. It's better than being home with people that knew me and knew my past and were expecting me to have everything sorted out, but I was absolute shambles. So I thought, okay, I can manage 3 months where I can pretend to be this person and be happy and whatever. But after that, I need to get back before the wall starts falling and they start seeing how much of a mess I was. So I came home, and then I basically did a yachting course and stuff like that. And I was trying to get back overseas, but my visa kept getting denied. And that's God. I'm telling you now. He will do things and you'll be like, no, I want to go. Then he's like, no, I know better for you. But anyways, so it got denied, and this obviously hurt me. And now I was getting scared because the thing is, my walls were falling down. People were starting to see through it. And the more I stayed home, the more of a disappointment I felt I was to my family. I felt like, oh my word, I'm just like this piece of nonsense that's done absolutely nothing with her life. She went over, she did nothing. She's come back. She doesn't have any money. I had some savings, but I didn't have nearly as much as what I should have had. I didn't have any goals. I didn't have anything going for me. I was living with my parents, waiting for my visa to go back. I just felt like a complete mess. And my visa kept getting denied, and I was just like, Lord, what am I going to do? I don't know. I don't want to get a job here in South Africa. I don't want to live here. I just want to be away. I want to be with people that don't know me, so that I can just not be judged and not be like, I basically would compare my life with everybody else, and I was so tired of doing that. So I just wanted to get away. But my visa kept getting denied, and then eventually, after getting a job here in South Africa, and it being a horrible, horrible, horrible experience and place, this place was just, in hospitality, you'll always find that there's always alcohol and drugs everywhere that you go. That's how people can't basically, I think a lot of people can only cope that way because it's such high strenuous jobs, hours and positions and stuff like that it's just really difficult. It really is. And I will always put my heart and my hat out to people that are in that industry, because please, people, you need to respect your servers and you need to respect your kitchen staff and you need to respect the people that are doing that for you, because you have no idea how long they spend on their feet, how much work they go through, how much they get put through. It's not a fun industry. Anyways, so I was at a guest house, a 5-star guest house in Franschhoek as a duty manager, and it was great. But the thing is, I was living on property because now I didn't want to live with my mom and them anymore. I didn't want to be a problem to them anymore. So I decided to go live on property, but I didn't have a car. So I was basically stuck 24/7 on this property. And when the job was done, it was just me basically and this other gemors of a person. That basically, and I pray for him as well, because at that stage I think he was just extremely lost and confused as well. And I just pray that like the Lord has healed him as well, and that he's come to realize that this is not the way forward for him. I've forgiven him for everything that he said and done. There was a lot that went on in that place, and he just basically had it out for anybody that was in that company, and he just had it out for me as well. And he was just really mean and did horrible things. And unfortunately, the bosses favored him because they were having affairs with him. So it was a very complex situation, and because I was so unhappy there, I just found myself, and it was a wine farm, I found myself, like I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have internet because the Wi-Fi didn't work. I was home alone, and I only had him to speak to, and I didn't want to speak to him because he scared me. So what else could I do? So I basically just would take a bottle of wine and drink a bottle of wine and watch my Netflix series that I would download from when I was in the office. And then I would fall asleep like that. And that was my night for like a couple of nights. And then I realized that like I literally couldn't go to sleep without having that bottle of wine. So that's where I realized like I really was developing a big problem, I used to always think it was just me going out and partying and then being able to like having one or two too many. I realized I was also quite a lightweight. I thought I could handle my alcohol, but one or two and I would already be like boom, boom. Then I realized, this is not the life I want to live. So eventually I left there and I came home. And it was just before Christmas. My grand came to fetch me. My parents were away again. So we were having Christmas at our house. And I should have been really excited. Now, bear in mind, I'd been overseas for like the last 4 years, I think it was. Just hold on, my dog's barking. Okay, so I'm back. You might hear her barking, but just excuse me. She just doesn't want to stay inside now, so I can't do anything about it. So where was I? Okay, so it was my first Christmas home with my whole family, because the Christmas before, my mom and I and my mom and my stepdad and my aunt and I, we went to Bali for Christmas, which was amazing. So I didn't have to really spend it with too many people, and it was fun and exciting. It was like a distraction. But now this was my first Christmas at home with my family that I hadn't been with in like 5 years. Now bear in mind, like when I was overseas, all I ever wanted to do on Christmas was be with the family, because I was in hospitality and we always worked on Christmas and Christmas, Boxing Day and stuff. So we never actually had proper Christmases, and I used to always just imagine myself being home with my family and stuff. So now I was finally home with my family on Christmas Day, and it was the worst day of my whole entire life. It was so bad. Oh my gosh. It was so bad. I just remember coming out of my room, and the whole family was there, and they're all happy and everything like that. And everybody was smiling, and they were all enjoying because it's Christmas. And I was just so unhappy. I was just so miserable. I felt like every part of my wall had just fallen down, and I was just this piece of poo basically that was just there in this room. And that every time one of the family members looked at me, they just looked at this broken person. I felt so lonely. I felt like I didn't know them anymore. I felt like they didn't know who I was. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I don't want to be here. I really don't want to be here. I don't want to be on this earth. I don't want to live anymore. And I just felt like such an embarrassment and such a shameful person. And I don't know why, because they never made me feel like that. But that was obviously all my own insecurities at that time. And it was difficult. And I just remember basically feeling this way and trying to act like I didn't feel this way. But the more I spoke to people, I felt like, oh my word, they were just like seeing right through me, seeing through the brokenness. And I couldn't handle it anymore. And then eventually, like, halfway through the afternoon, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just took a bottle of wine and I went to my room and I closed the door and I locked my door, and I just like cried and cried and cried and cried. And I just remember drinking it and then like sitting there and crying and feeling so lonely. And then I just remember crying and I was Googling how to end my life. Basically, the best and easiest, quickest way to end my life would be without being too painful. And I just remember looking at this and just thinking to myself, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to keep running. I'm tired. I'm so tired of running and pretending. That I basically just cried out, and I was like, this is me crying out to, at that time I didn't really know, but I was just like, Jesus, this is supposed to be your birthday. It's supposed to be a beautiful day of like celebrations, and I'm with my family, and yet I feel so alone and so unloved and so unwanted. Like, I don't understand this. Isn't this like, this doesn't make sense to me? And I said, I just don't want to feel this way anymore. Like, if you exist, if there is such a thing, I know my grand told me about you the whole time. Please help me. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And then I turned around and I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day. And basically the next day I lived my day again, because like at this point in my life I was just living for day. Like, I didn't want to know about them 2 days. Nobody could make plans with me 3 days later, because I just was trying to get through the day. Like, I didn't even know what I was going to do the next week, whether I was going to be here or not. So then it was Boxing Day, and the family came over again, and I actually did what I always was so good. I came out and I just pretended nothing had happened again, because that was my life. It was easy just to sweep everything under the cupboard and pretend you live day for day, so the next day is a new day, and whatever happened the day before never happened, and we just pretend nothing happens and we just carry on. And I carried on with that, but I still felt so lonely and so upset. Then my grand started speaking to me as well about going to church and stuff like that, because I think she started seeing through it. I know now, she told me that she knew I had a drinking problem because she could just see it, and she had found a bottle of wine in my room the one time, and she had been praying for me, like she'd been praying my whole life. So that's another testimony in itself. It's beautiful, actually. And she just started speaking to me about, Jesus and God and going to church, and I started thinking to myself, like, I have nothing else to lose. I don't know what else to do with my life. Like, it's either this or I'm going to kill myself. Like, so I might as well try. So I decided to go to church with her the one day, and I remember being in the service, and it was quite dark, so it was nice. I liked it because it was a dark, like a one that had used all the lights and the music and stuff like that, so they like to have it quite dark inside, and then the stage lit up. So I liked that because I felt comfortable in the dark, even though I felt comfortable being alone in the dark. I felt very scared being alone in the dark when I was by myself trying to sleep. I felt comfort in the dark because they couldn't see me. Hard to explain, but anyways, so I was like, okay, I can do this, and then I started, like, the music, I was like, okay, this is quite cool, there's lights and stuff like that, nice. Then he started giving his message, and I tried to listen. It was great, and then eventually I was like, okay, I need this to be over, like, whatever. And then he started with the salvation prayer, and I cannot tell you, when he started with it, he started asking, some people, you may be feeling this or whatever. It felt like he was speaking directly to me. Like, everything he was saying, you feel lonely, you feel like you can't do this anymore, you don't want to, and you're scared. And I felt like he was literally talking to me. And then he started praying, and then he was like, if you're feeling this way, please raise your hand so we can pray for you. And then all of a sudden, this like burning sensation just went through my body, like there was a fire inside my body. And I just felt like, he's talking to me, like this is for me, like, oh my word, what is happening? I'm feeling warm, I don't understand. And then all of a sudden I started raising my hand so that he could pray for me and pray for everybody else. But like, I felt like it was a very intimate thing, even though there was so many other people. So I raised my hand, and then he started doing the salvation prayer. And as he started doing it, I just broke down into pieces. I felt like the walls had just come collapsing down, and I was just by myself. And I was literally on the floor. This is in my mind. I wasn't really doing this. I was just on the floor, and I was weeping, and I was just saying, please help me. Please help me. And he did. These are happy tears, because he really did. In that moment, my whole life changed completely. Everything had started clicking and making sense from that moment. Like, I felt that salvation prayer, and I just surrendered my life right there and there. And I said, I need him. And he came into my life. And from that moment, very quickly, my life transformed, like from chalk to cheese, basically. From the graves to the gardens, basically. I surrendered. I went straight home and I quit my job at this horrible place. I said to my gran, I need help with drinking, and that after that prayer, they pray for you again separately, and then they ask you for your details so that they can get hold of you, basically. And there was this beautiful woman who I know very well now that prayed for me, and then she got me into contact with an AA group that they had, and I agreed to go to these meetings. So in this time, when this whole transformation was happening, the Lord basically had heard me call, and he said, I'm here, I've always been here, come with me, basically. That's how I feel it was. And I said, okay, I'm coming. And in that time, he was doing the same for my brother. At the same time, my brother had also struggled in his past, also had a lot of horrible things happen to him, had been in and out of rehab, and he was struggling with drugs at that point in time. And at that very moment in my life, he was living on the streets in his car. And he was just also lost and confused, and like my parents just didn't know what to do with him. We didn't know what to do with him. Every time we sent him money, it was just a nightmare. And so my parents had given him an ultimatum and said to him, you know what, the last thing that they can do right now is send him to Noport rehabilitation center, where he'd have to be there for at least a year. And I just remember in this moment, it's all a bit, because it happened so quickly. I was thinking to myself, I think what I didn't realize then was that I was beating myself up as well, because my brother was struggling with this like hardcore situation, and he was getting sent to Noport, and I was in the house with my parents secretly drinking and doing these things and getting away with it. And I think that ate at me. And I think that tore me down. My subconscious just tore me down even more than that. That's how the devil just works, And I just remember at that time, like, he came home, and then my stepfather had to drop him off, and I remember seeing him and how skinny he was and how lost and scared, and I was just like, what's happening? How did our family get to this point? And I remember him being off and not being able to speak to him and feeling so guilty. Okay, just hold on. Okay, so I felt so guilty at that time watching him go, and then knowing what my life was, and also being so scared that I was going down the same route, yet not being able to stop myself from sabotaging. So he had gone off. I had gone to this church service, and then I'd found out about the AA meetings, and this was my drive. Basically, he was my inspiration to just go, because I thought to myself, he has to go through that. I can't just sit here and do nothing. And obviously now I know that was also the Lord preempting me to do that, like pushing me, the Holy Spirit's, like leading me in the right way. And so I started going to these AA meetings, and I remember the first time I went, I was like, this is so not me. Sorry, my nose is itchy. This is so not me. I'm so scared. I'm such an introvert. I spent my whole 30 years running away from people and trying to not show people who I was. Now I'm going to a meeting where I have to basically sit in a group of people and tell them everything that I've done. It was like so chalk and cheese, and I was like, how am I going to do this? I don't know. So I just arrived, and I remember praying before I went, and I just said, Lord, please just help me. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I shouldn't be saying. I'm scared. And as I went in, I just felt so light, and I sat down with this group of ladies and this gentleman that was running the counseling session. And I just broke down again and just basically just started telling my truth. Like, it all just came out, boom, 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 boom. Everything that I'd done, everything that I've gone through, all the abuse that I'd gone through, just like all the things that I'd done to people and all the things that I'd done to myself, basically, like trying to take my life and things like that. The abortion, just everything just started coming out of my mouth, and I felt like as I was just letting it go, I was just getting lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And I felt like he was just saying, yes, this is what I wanted. Yes, let it go. It's no longer you. Let it go. Let it out. Let it go. Stop running. Let it go. And I did that, and I cannot explain to you, if you are suffering with alcoholism, addiction, just depression or anything like that, I promise you, please trust me, find a group of people. There are so many. I literally went on Google and found this group. There's so many people out there. You can do it nowadays in Zoom meetings where you don't even have to have the screen on. They don't even have to see you. But do it, because I promise you, there is healing in that. There is healing in admitting and being and asking for forgiveness. Like, there is so much healing in that. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you, but this just happened, and because it was an AA meeting, but also part of the church, it was amazing because it was also a spiritual thing as well. So all these people from all different walks of life. I'm talking about people that have been homeless, people that had been like from the rich families. All of us, we were all on the same level, all exactly the same. Nobody judged anybody. We were all right there, just speaking our truths, telling our stories. And there was just so much comfort in knowing that I was no longer alone, that I didn't do this, wasn't just done to me. I wasn't the only one that was going through this. There were so many other people going through it, and we were all feeling the same at the same time. So anyway, so I started doing that. And then I started going to church, obviously, more often. And sometimes, like, I don't know, I just dug into it because I thought to myself, I have nothing else to lose. I've got nothing else going for me at this point in time. And I know now that sometimes people say when they come to Christ, they either have a radical transformation, and I believe mine was very radical because that's what was needed for me in order to be able to do it, So mine happened very quickly in the sense of, like, I started going to the AA meetings. Then all of a sudden I was going to church like 3 times on a Sunday, both sessions and in the evening sessions, even though I sat by myself most of it because I didn't want to get to know anybody. I was still very scared. I didn't want the people in the church to know who I really was. I would go to church services and I would just basically come home, and then I would like watch all the services. That's where I started knowing about Stephen Furtick and all of those things. And his message just really started stirring up something in me. And then all of a sudden, so this was in the space of like end of January to March, basically. And then in the beginning of March, they said they were going to do baptisms, and I kind of was like, I don't really know what this is, but I'm going to read up on it. But I felt like a burning sensation in my heart saying, you have to go, you have to do this. Like, don't wait, do it now. This is what you need to do. So I was like, I signed myself up for it, and I was like, okay, even though I'm not quite sure exactly what it means, I will read up on it or whatever. I spoke to my grand, she explained it to me, and I said, okay, well, I want this. I want the Holy Spirit to live in me and dwell in me. If this is what it takes to get better, then I'm willing. Like, I have nothing else to lose. I'm willing, Lord. Like, and I prayed. I said, Lord, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. I don't know if it's the right time, but I feel like you drawing me to this. I'm going to do it. So I signed myself up for that, and basically, what happened was, it was just before COVID. How funny is this? It was just before COVID. So I must backtrack a little bit now because there's testimonies in all of this. So basically, what happened while I was going to the church services, let me speak to you about this first. So while I was going to church services, bear in mind, like, I used to have this thing, obviously, because of my past and what happened to me. I used to always sabotage by trying to find somebody to connect with, or try get like an attraction to somebody, or feel wanted or whatever. So those things, just because you become Christian doesn't mean that all of that falls away straight away. No, those are things you have to work through and ask the Lord to deliver you from. So I hadn't known that I could do that yet. So I remember going to the service, and I walked through the doors, and then this guy came walking past me. And when this guy walked past me, basically, I felt like there was something in my mind. It wasn't a loud, audible voice, but it was a voice in my head that said, oh, that's the guy you're going to marry. And I remember looking at him, and I remember going, no, Zoe, no, you're not doing this right now. You're not coming to church to try and form a relationship or a bond with somebody and then end up sabotaging this whole experience. Like you're not going to do that now. No, you're not going to do that, because that's what I used to do in my past the whole time. So I was just like, not happening. And I just blocked it out of my mind. I was like, nope, not going to do this. So I went in and I carried on a couple of days later. I had to do the baptism, basically. We came to the baptism in the beginning of March. I think I've got the day that I got baptized. I'll just quickly give it to you. Dates and history was never my forte. First of all, I can't remember half my past, so don't ask me to remember days and history. It's just not what I do. Anyways, so I got baptized. My gran bought me this amazing Bible on it. On the 1st of March, basically. So the 1st of March, I remember that morning, I woke up and I still smoked back then. And I went to the fireplace where I used to have a cigarette, and I lit the cigarette, and I was smoking. And in that moment, I just prayed, and I said, you know what, Lord, I'm doing this right now. I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but I feel like it's the right move. And I said, you know what, if anything, can you please help me? I don't want to smoke anymore. I don't want to drink. Please heal me from these addictions, heal me from these curses, heal me from feeling the way that I feel. And I prayed that, and then I got up and I left and I went to church to do the baptism, basically. Then, sorry, my dog's chewing something. So I get to the service, and it was a whole bunch of us, and we all had to put the shirts on. They spoke to us about what we were about to do, and then we all lined up, basically, to do this, to get baptized. So when it came up to my time, I stood up in the front, and as I stood there, I saw in the pool area was one guy that was doing the baptism, basically, you know, saying what he needed to say, and the other guy was there to help with assisting pulling in and out of the water. And I realized it was that guy I spoke about earlier on, where I said, oh, I'm going to marry this guy, and straight away I was like, no, this is not happening, no. And then I laughed about it because that guy now basically says he remembers. I was like, no, I'm not going to take your hand, basically. That's how stubborn I was. I was like, I got up to the pool. He held his hand to like help me get in, and I was like, nope, I can do this myself. Got into the pool, sat in, and then I basically went under the water. And when I came out of the water, I had this like light feeling on me again, and I just was smiling from ear to ear. And I got out, and I basically, from that day, never picked up a cigarette ever again in my life, and never picked up a drink again. Basically, I did pick up a drink again, but I didn't want to. So when I tried to drink it, I didn't like it, basically. So I went from basically craving and loving alcohol to like trying it and being like, oh, I don't like this. The same with a cigarette, like it repulsed me literally in that day. Like, and everybody that knows me and knows how much I like to party and drink would never believe that. But it literally, like, he literally took that from me and pulled all that love for those things out of me, and I like was repulsed by that after that. It was amazing. I couldn't, like, I just, to this day, like, there's only one person that can do that, and that's the Lord, I swear. I had been trying for years and years and years to try stop smoking and drinking, and tried so many things, and I couldn't do it, and it was him. And anyway, so I got baptized, and then straight after that, lockdown happened. Like, then all of a sudden, like, I was like, oh, I can start going to church and meeting people, you know, like life group people and becoming, and then all of a sudden, boom, lockdown happened. And I believe that the Lord pulled me to do my baptism just before, because he knew that I needed this to get through lockdown, because of this fire that was lit within me when this happened. Instead of, when we went into lockdown, I was at complete peace with it, actually, because I'd received this beautiful Bible from my gran. And basically what happened was, when I went into lockdown, I was like, well, you know what, I have nothing going for me in any case. So I locked myself in my bedroom, and I basically dug into this book, and I just got to know who Jesus was by his word, basically. Because I think what happened was, I could be very easily influenced by people and by situations. I had a lot of offenses against me, so people used to offend me very easily. I was very shy. I used to feel like I was being judged the whole time. So I feel like if I had gone back to church, there might have been the chance where it wouldn't have been so radical in the sense of I would have been influenced by people. If people that looked at me in a weird way, I would have been like, put off. And that's how fragile I was at that point. So I feel like lockdown basically was a time for me where he put me and he basically gave me my salvation. I got baptized before, and then I was put alone, which was perfect because all I could do, I couldn't go to church. All I could do was actively seek him, go and watch church services and read his actual words. So I was learning about Christ through the Bible, not through other people's words, basically, not through other people telling me only about it, but by me actually reading and getting to know who he is from his word. And that transformed my life completely. So going back to that, I started doing a lot of self-healing and stuff like that, and then I realized that actually through my whole entire life, this is how good God is. Like, through my whole entire life, I started remembering things, because now when you start healing, I started remember, like, you have to start basically forgiving yourself, forgiving people, and you have to start, you realize that you use alcohol and drugs and pills and stuff like that as a crutch to get away from it. But now, in order to heal those, you need to actually address the situation. So I started going back into my past, which was very difficult. I'm not going to tell you it wasn't difficult, but I had somebody that was with me the whole time. I had the word, I had Jesus, I had his comfort and his peace. And in that, I realized, I started remembering things like from my childhood. I started remembering that when I was younger and this molestation was happening, the sexual abuse was happening to me, I obviously was very scared, and I didn't know what to do and stuff like that. And I was scared, and I used to go sleep with my gran, and she had given me this little white Bible that she said I can keep next to my bed, and she would tell me about Jesus and tell me about stories and tell me about how he would protect me and stuff like that. And then she taught me the Lord's Prayer, the prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, holy be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. That prayer. And throughout my whole entire life, I realized that it all came back to me. Back then when I was doing it, I didn't really realize it, but every time I was scared when I was younger, and I couldn't go to sleep, I would take this little white Bible and I would put it under my pillow and I would say that prayer, and that would help me escape, basically. That would help me feel better and at peace. So that's how I would be able to block out the trauma, but also that was my comfort thing. So it became my shield. Well into my adult years, obviously I'd lost the Bible growing up, but I remember in some of the darkest periods of my life, in my adulthood, where I was so scared and lost, and I felt like there was just evil forces all around me and I couldn't understand what was going on, and I was in a room and I was literally so scared. I would say that prayer, and that prayer would help bring me peace in that moment, and then I would just have a little bit of peace just to kind of escape those feelings. So even though I didn't realize it at that time, I came to realize that he had always been with me. He had called me right from birth already. He had already known my name right there, and he was already protecting me right there. That he was giving me coping mechanisms, even in my scariest moments. He was doing that for me. So I remembered all those type of things. And I started going through all of these things, and then I joined a life group through Zoom at that stage, because everybody was Zooming in COVID. And it was a young adults life group, and on the group was a whole bunch of people, and on the one screen I realized there was this guy again, and I was just like, oh my word, Lord, what is happening? Seriously? That I don't want to give my heart to anybody else. The only person I'm looking for right now is you. I don't want love from anybody else. I don't want to love anybody else right now. I just want you. And this guy just kept popping up everywhere, and eventually I got to know him. I had a friend of mine that was going through a really traumatic time in COVID. He was super lonely. He'd just gone through a big breakup, and he was just feeling very fragile. So I remember on the group I was speaking about him and asking the group just to pray for him. And then this guy Sheldon basically contacted me privately, and he was just like, how is your friend doing? And started speaking to me, and I was just like, oh my word, now he's messaging me, seriously? So I had to reply and be a nice person that I am. Sorry, I just had to get her from barking. So yeah, Sheldon reached out basically, and he just said, he'll help pray for my friend, and then we just started talking from there. And then eventually I was like, okay, well, I can't avoid this. It'd be rude for me not to answer. So we started talking, but I said to myself, I'm going to keep it all about the Lord, basically. And we did. In the beginning, we spoke and we encouraged each other. he was going through some stuff as well. He had lost his brother a couple of years ago. So naturally, he was also, going through things. And we just started talking about stuff. And then we started talking about each other. And we eventually progressed to like who we are, what we do. And then we grew a really good friendship from there. Like we were speaking every day, textbook messages. We always talk about textbook messages. And we were chatting and stuff like that. And then eventually when lockdown started lightening and we could go for walks and stuff like that, we arranged to meet with the 2 life group leaders. They were a married couple, and we went for like a little mini, I would call it a hike. He would call it climbing up the mountain. But it was a small little hike, and we did that. And that was fun. It was so nice because then I actually got to meet other people, because mind you, remember when I just did my salvation and all that stuff, I just joined the church basically. So I never really got to form relationships or bonds with anybody before. So it was really nice. And then from there, me and him decided to get together for more walks, just the 2 of us, and we would walk up Paul Main Road and just talk and get to know each other and stuff like that. And then lockdown kind of like started lifting completely, and we decided to like just kind of basically get together. He invited me to the farm that he works on, and we did like a tour of the farm basically. And then I started developing feelings for him. I said to the Lord, you know what, Lord, I tried my best. I prayed about it. I asked you so many times, if this is not your will, please let it just not be in my life. Allow me to kind of like get out of it or whatever. But I am beginning to get feelings for this guy, and I feel like he is a good guy and he's after your heart. And if there is anybody that I want to be with, it would have to be somebody that loves you more than they love me. Because that is what I'm looking for. I need somebody to help me with that as well, and also encourage me in that. And I feel like he is. And in this time, he also started feeling feelings for me, and also started, praying about these type of things. So then we started, he asked me out, and I said, yeah, let's give this a go. And basically 3 years later, or 2.5 years later, we are engaged and we're getting married now. On the 25th of November, and he is my best friend, and I'm so blessed. And I get teary-eyed because I realized that just the other day when I was looking at the pictures of our baptism, because he was obviously baptizing me, I realized that when I went down in that water, not only had the Lord basically, because of my obedience and because of my hunger for him, and just because I was just so tired and I was ready to give up everything that I was and who I was, and I didn't want to do it anymore, and I just believed that he could heal me. I believed with all my heart that he could heal me. When I went down in that water and the guy in Sheldon lifted me up, not only did he heal me of my addiction, my pill addiction, my trauma, my night terrors, all of that, he also blessed me with my husband in that moment. And I didn't know it, because when I went in that water, I didn't know that I was going to be dating this guy, and I didn't know that I was going to be marrying this guy. And that's just what he does. That's who the Lord is. That's what he does when you completely and utterly just surrender everything to him. He has plans for all of us, and it says, it says right in the Bible, it says, it's my favorite verse, because it really truly is. It says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And he really, really means that. Everything that you read, everything that you hear, you might not believe it, but I promise you it is true. He really does love you. And this is just the beginning of the goodness that he is and what he's done for me. He healed me. I no longer get night terrors anymore. I get them still, but the thing is, I can actually sleep for the first time in my life. Like in the last couple of years, I've been able to sleep like full nights. I went from sleeping maybe 1 or 2 hours a night for 25 years, because ever since I was a child, I just couldn't sleep because I was too scared of the dark. I can actually sleep now. And when I wake up, because night terrors will always come when you're stressed out and stuff like that. And being a Christian doesn't mean that you don't get stressed out. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen to you. It doesn't mean that you don't fail. It doesn't mean that you don't sin or make mistakes. No, it doesn't mean that. So when those moments do happen, I do still get night terrors, but I'm able to basically speak to them and tell them to go and tell them who my Lord is and remember what he's done for me. And the devil no longer has a hold on me anymore, and he knows that, so then it doesn't affect me. I can actually turn around and go back to sleep. That's what he's done for me, basically. Not only has he done that, he's also taken a person that thought they had no hope in the future, didn't even want to think about what they were going to do the next day, and he's given me the ability to start up a company with my mom. And we are going 4 years now, and we've been so blessed. We did nothing. Everything we have is what we've worked with our own hands towards. We've been so blessed with a family that loves us. I've been able to reconnect with my family. I'm busy reconnecting with my sister. I'm busy reconnecting with my siblings and stuff like that. He's given me this company. So not only do I own, with my mom, we own this company, but we go out and we meet people. He's working on all my social anxieties. He's literally showed me that from a very young age, when I used to use my imagination to hide and run away, he's taken that, and now I no longer use it to hide and run away. I use it to put on a vision board, and I use it to chase my dreams, basically, because I realize that those visions and those ways of escaping, because I used to imagine a better life back then, are actually gifts that he's given me to be able to, basically imagine what my future can be like and go after it with everything. So ever since I've known that, I've been able to write down all my goals, all my dreams, and no matter how far out they seem and stuff like that, I write them down and I pray over them and I go over them, and if it's his will, he makes them happen, and he does. There's so many things in my life that he's actually done, like with my company, basically. I was able to sit there and just look at this building and be like, Lord, this is where I want to be. This is what I want. I know we got nothing at the moment. We don't earn salaries. We don't earn anything. Everything goes back into the company, and he does it. If you really want it, and it's in his will, and you pray for it, and you keep making sure that it's within his will, it's glorifying who he is and showing the light that he shines through it, he will make it happen. So basically, that's just my testimony in a nutshell. There's so much else that he's done for me, and so much that I could go on. I could literally sit here for another hour and explain to you all the goodness that he's done for me. But basically, in a nutshell, what he's done is he's taken me from a broken person that was molested, that was an alcoholic, a drug addict, that used to self-sabotage or try to commit suicide, that had an abortion, right, that didn't want to live, and it was just completely broken and a complete on the track to basically ending up on the streets or just broken, basically. If I carried on like that, you took that and he basically pulled me out of the grave and planted me in his beautiful garden. And he's just showed me basically that I'm healed, I'm loved, I am going to be a great mother one day. I am going to be a great wife one day. He's given me a fiance and soon to be husband. He's rekindled relationships with my family members. He has healed my brother. My brother has been saved, and he is clear, and he's also a recovered alcoholic and drug addict now for the past couple of years. He works in ministry. He's going out on the streets. He's healing people that have been broken, that were sleeping on the streets just like him. This is what Jesus does. And anybody that knows me and my family, and there's a lot of people that know me and my family that will see this, would know who we were and what we were. And they will ask, how do we do it? And this is basically me telling you exactly how it is. It all starts with just surrendering, just saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Please come into my life, and please come heal me. Please come show me who you are. I am willing to listen to you, and I'm willing to be obedient. And he will do that. So guys, that's basically where it's at. And now, 35 years, this whole journey started, basically, I'll tell you now. I've got the date here. It started in 2020, so we are in 2023. It's been 3 years, and this is how he's transformed my life in 3 years. I have not touched a sip of alcohol in 3 years. I have not smoked a cigarette in 3 years. I no longer take pills and tablets and any of those type of things. I try my best not to when I'm sick. He always gives me ways of like trying to, drink water and lemon and stuff like that. But not just that, I don't have a hunger for it anymore. Like even if you put it in front of me, I'm not that type of a person. Like I don't understand. I didn't have to go to rehab. I didn't have to go to many AA meetings. He literally just stood right out of me, where I don't even have the craving for it anymore. Like I don't crave cigarettes. I don't crave alcohol. I don't, like, it actually repulses me, but it doesn't put me off. I don't judge people that drink or do all those things. It simply doesn't bother me anymore. It's almost like I never ever drank to begin with, and I just don't know any better, and I just don't really want to know. That's what he's done for me. And he's given me so many purposes and so many promises and stuff like that, that like all I do every day is just pray out, and I just go after my future, and I go after the fact that I know I'm going to be, even though what happened in the past, I know that he has plans for me to be a beautiful mother one day, and my goal is just to basically just be the best version that I can be for myself, and push my husband to be the best version that he can be for himself. We both love God. We both celebrate him. He is in our lives. Every day we speak about him, and he's just basically giving me so much freedom and so much peace and so much love. Like I feel love like I've never felt before in my whole entire life. Like just speaking about it, my heart just like, oh, it's such a good feeling. And my biggest prayer in life right now is that I can basically, I just want this for my family. I want this for my friends. I want this for the people that I work with. If I could just share this with people so that they can feel just an inkling of what I feel right now, because I know it's possible for each and every one of us. And when I see people hurting, and when I see people going through the pain that I went through, all I want to do is just hug them and just be like, you can do this. I know you can do, like, this is what you can have, like, just please. So basically that's where I feel like he's going to be leading me, and that's what I'm trying to do with the company as well, is just being able to reach out to people and share his gospel, share his word, share his love, and just let people know that if he can do this for me, like little old me, like literally, like I swear he can do so much more for you. So please just trust him, believe him, let him in. He's there. He's your father. He's the father you never had. He's the mother you never had. He's the best friend you never had. He is the sibling you never had. He's the best version of you that you thought you never had. So just trust him. Anyways, guys, I'll probably share a little bit more about my other testimonies, because there's so many things that I never told you about, because I just don't want to glorify the past. I want to glorify everything that he's done for me. And I will probably share a little bit more about those sometime in the future. But yeah, otherwise, if you ever want to reach out, please contact me directly. It's Zoe McEwen Marriage. You can always contact me. I'm open to chat to you. I'm open to share a couple of things, suggest a couple of ideas that I went through and what I did, just to kind of help me heal. But yeah, anyways, have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I hope that this message touched somebody or touched your heart in some way. And I pray with all my heart and all my might and all my soul that you will just receive his word, and that you will just let him come into your life, and that you will just let him heal you and love you and hold you in his arms and tell you that you are worthy and you are his child, and he has plans for you, not to hurt you but to prosper you, and that he will be there for you. You don't need anybody else, but you just need him. Trust him, believe him, and just accept it. Okay, thank you so much. Love you lots. Bye.